everyone. My name is Heather Reed. I am so excited that you are investing your precious time with me today. I love what we're talking about. It kind of really gets me going. So I use she, her pronouns. And for those of you using accessibility technology, I'm a 61-year-old white female, and I've got ash-colored hair, red glasses, and I'm wearing a navy blue top. And I'm coming to you from my home office. As a reminder, for every single episode of Event Contracts Exposed, I am not a lawyer, and nothing that we discuss here should be considered legal advice. This is all about education, insights, and practical strategies offered by a seasoned event planner, which would be me, with more than 30 years of experience. So for those listening live or on replay, I would love to see your comments or questions about these wording warnings that I will be touching on today. So let's get into the learning. So for folks that see my LinkedIn content, you may already know that wording warnings are part of what I post. I love creating them. I love finding them and sharing what I've encountered when reviewing a contract. For those who have not yet encountered one of them in your feed, the premise of wording warnings is quite simple. Wording warnings are short, practical posts that spotlight risky event contract language that at first glance might seem okay, but they really aren't, or they often may get overlooked, or I fear that sometimes they're not critically thought through by event professionals. So I share these wording warnings as I encounter them, knowing that they help event professionals spot red flags, which ultimately protects their organizations and help them to negotiate smarter. So the first one that I want to look at, and this is the format in which I post them online. It's this big yellow dot with the words wording warning on the bottom. So this first one is about substitute space. The contract language that I've extracted here is about substitute space in a venue. And the draft venue contract read as follows. The hotel reserves the right to make reasonable substitutions in meeting and banquets rooms, so long as the substitute space is equal in size. If the group requires the hotel to agree not to substitute space, additional charges will apply. Okay, take that one in. Isn't that crazy? My concerns with this language are twofold. One, since when is equal in size the only parameter for determining appropriate or equivalent space? And two, if the group doesn't agree to substitute space, then it says they will apply additional charges. So I think WTH, like that's crazy. So in my opinion, neither of these contract sentences are appropriate or reasonable. Anyone that has booked space knows that there is so much more that goes into choosing a venue and meeting space. It's not just about square footage. What about aesthetics, decor, proximity to other meeting spaces, pillars versus no pillars, natural lighting? Accessibility is a paramount concern. Whether it's even got carpeting, like the lists of why you choose a space are unlimited, really. So basing an equivalent space on just equal square footage is incredibly short-minded and shortchanges the group severely, in my opinion. And then in addition, the idea that the hotel would charge an additional fee for the group to be able to be assured of their contracted meeting space is nuts. What is the purpose of the contract if not to confirm meeting spaces? So in my opinion, the wording should reflect that if the hotel wants the option of substituting space, The hotel should be able to compensate the group with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know how many specific mitigation measures. It's not about charging the client to substitute space. All right, wording warning number 2 for today. This is a concept, a legal concept called without liability. So I've used this one because the venue contract read as follows. In the event of force majeure, if the group chooses not to rebook or is unable to rebook at the venue within 3 years, the group agrees to pay the applicable cancellation fees. As a layperson and not as a lawyer, my understanding is that the legal premise of without liability should be applied to terminations that have been triggered by circumstances outside of either party's control. And we learned this lesson so well because of the pandemic. In the case of force majeure, performance is legally excused. So without liability, in my understanding, it means that neither party is legally responsible for damages, penalties, or financial consequences arising from the termination of the contract for reasons that are beyond or outside of either party's control. However, when you look at this particular wording in this draft language, the venue is indicating that in 2 specific scenarios, the legal premise of without liability that is connected to termination due to force majeure would not apply. First, if the group chooses not to rebook their event at the venue. And second, if the group is unable to rebook at the venue within 3 years. So I think about that and I think, yes, it's optimal if the group can rebook and their event can go forward at a future date. They've given a generous window of time to be able to rebook. But I am aware of clients of mine that are looking 6, 7, 10 years out with their contracts. What if that group cannot book within a 3-year window? They have not held their event because of reasons beyond their control. And this is saying then that they would be paying cancellation fees in this circumstance. And we know, like, that's a whole other discussion about, that it's cancellation fees are derived from revenue and proportions of revenue. In this case, this is specific to force majeure, which is termination without outside the control of either party. So I think this language needs to be thoroughly negotiated, and it should be negotiated to be clear that it is without liability. So that means the return of all deposits. It may mean, depending on when the force majeure call is made, there may be some expenses if food is on site, example, but for the most part, it's not that they would then turn around and charge cancellation fees. So that one was an eye-opener. All right, my third example. This one actually made me wince. And I actually, for real, said, are you kidding me? Is this for real? This one is a venue disclaimer. That's the subheading that was in the contract. So the draft venue contract read, venue disclaimer. We do not warrant that the meeting room or meeting rooms, the services, the main premises, or the building will meet your requirements, that they will meet applicable legal standards, or that they are safe and suitable for your intended use. Who else is wincing or going, oh my God, is that for real? So I know that looking at some of the names on here, I know that you have been around a long time. That's just crazy. So the venue is telling the group, in my opinion, and it's a layperson's opinion, one, we're not promising that our space is safe. Number two, we're not promising that it is up to legal standards. Number three, we're not promising that it's suitable for your contracted use. And quite simply, fourth, we're telling you, the group, that if something goes wrong, that's on you, group. So this disclaimer, taken verbatim from a venue contract, attempts to shift all responsibility to the group, to waive the venue's duty, their basic duty of care. They disclaim compliance with building codes, with fire codes, and with the safety laws, and actually undermine the purpose of contracting with a professional venue. So to me, this language raises a fundamental question that I almost think could be a deal breaker for a client that would be looking at this particular venue. Does the group want to do business with a venue that disclaims responsibilities for safety, legalities, and suitabilities? This to me is a huge red flag. It's a huge risk signal. And I would say, unless it is completely flipped on end and that the venue does warrant for suitability, for safety, for legal standards, that it would literally be a deal breaker. I was flabbergasted to see this when I've seen it once, but that's enough to know that it's probably not the only place it appears. All right. I think this is number 5, I think. I don't know what number it is. Number 4, I think. All right. The setup of this one, kind of crazy, and I apologize. It's not as clear as it could have been, but bear with me. I want to explain this one to you. So the concern here is the term expressly waived when it is used in a draft event contract. So when an event contract uses the term expressly waived, it means, to me as a layperson, it means that the party is intentionally and clearly giving up a legal right on purpose and in writing. So the party giving up the legal right cannot later on claim that, A, we didn't know, or, oh, that wasn't our intent, or we assumed our rights were protected somewhere else in the contract. If the term expressly waived, and as I put it in this graphic, in the contract that I reviewed for a client, it actually was capitalized, expressly waived. So when an event contract says the doctrines of ABC or XYZ are expressly waived, this should cause immediate pause to the group. So the legal premises, which is the words that they use as doctrines, often appear in clauses like liabilities and claims, like talking about damages, like indirect damages or consequential damages. I've seen it quite often waiving the right to a jury trial. I've seen them in force majeure remedies, indemnification limitations. So you will find the term expressly waived, and that should cause you pause. So the question that you ask is, why is the supplier putting in writing that the group is expressly waiving their rights to ABC or XYZ? Are these rights ones that would actually protect the group? And are these these rights, are they something that would otherwise share the risk between both parties? So I include this one here. There's certain words that you always should be circling when you read a contract through. I love the word current. I love the word, may, will, shall. I love the word at the time of. Expressly waived is one of those that also gets a circle, because it means I've got to go back and really think about it. So my urge here is not to gloss over legal terminology. We as planners are interpreters of the contracts. And while we absolutely should be advocating for legal counsel to review our contracts, it is on us to understand the premise of it in a layperson's way. And it's easy enough to understand what expressly waived would mean. So every word in a supplier's draft event contract has been carefully chosen, and it's been nuanced by their legal counsel, the supplier's legal counsel, to protect the supplier. So terms like expressly waived should not ever be overlooked. All right, so I've given you a wording warning that is related to physical venue space. We've looked at 3 that are legal language or terminology. And this 4th example, I want to cover one that the 5th. I want to cover one that impacts the financial obligations of the group. So this is one that I extracted verbatim from a draft venue contract, and it read, quote, "Once food and beverage functions details have been established under one or more BEOs, which are banquet event orders, the food and beverage commitment will be deemed increased to the amount set forth in the applicable BEOs, such that liquidated damages will be calculated using that figure rather than the food and beverage minimum." I got to pause for a second, because I know that so many of us read food and beverage and BEOs, and I just want you to take this one in. It's saying that once you've moved from a contracted minimum amount in your contract, but you create your BEOs and it's a higher amount, then your responsibility becomes the higher amount. And that if you don't meet that higher amount at the time of the event, liquidated damages would be calculated from that higher amount. So in other words, if a group contractually agrees to a food and beverage minimum of, let's say, $100,000, and when the BEOs are created, the food and beverage revenue is $130,000, this language is indicating that the group's food and beverage minimum is now increased to the $130,000 value. That extra $30,000 was never negotiated as a minimum, but it just became one. And to me, as a seasoned planner, BEOs are intended to, 1, confirm logistics, 2, to reflect an evolving program's needs, and 3, we all know that BEOs change over time. Some of them get started 6 weeks in advance, 4 weeks in advance. Some of them are done right before the event. To me, as a seasoned planner, BEOs are not intended to, 1, redefine liquidated damages. They're not intended to retroactively amend the contract. And 3, BEOs are not meant to increase the financial guarantees without the group's consent. So for this one, when the BEOs increase the financial minimum, estimates become guarantees, and guarantees become damages. So at what point should planning details turn into financial penalties? Well, they shouldn't unless you intentionally agree to them. So, loved this one. This one got my dander up. And I've got one last final one for our time together here today. And this one I just posted about last week on my LinkedIn feed. This one is a hot topic in our industry right now, and it's addressing the group's right to choose their own preferred third-party audiovisual supplier other than the venue's preferred third-party AV supplier. And it's the second sentence that prompted my warning, but I wanted to give context, so I included both. So the draft event contract read, quote, if the group proposes to use an audiovisual provider other than the preferred AV provider, the group will allow the preferred AV provider to submit a competitive bid for the business. Okay, that seems reasonable. However, it went on to say, if another AV provider is selected, the group shall provide a copy of the contract with the other provider to help in the planning process of the function. So as I said on my graphic, it's the second sentence that is dreadful. It isn't collaboration. To me, in my humble opinion, it crosses an ethical line. By using the term shall in the second sentence, the language compels, you can think of it as requires, it mandates that the group has to provide a copy of their contract with a different third-party AV provider who is not the venue's preferred AV provider to the venue. The request indicates that this is being requested to facilitate the planning process. Well, based again on my 30 years, I'm going to call bullshit on this one, and I think it's unethical. Sharing an AV provider's contract in this case could be sharing confidential pricing. It could be sharing equipment specifications. It could be sharing equipment packages that they've created for the event. It could be sharing confidential business terms. No supplier should gain access to another supplier's proprietary agreement. The representative of the group is the intermediary between the AV supplier and the venue. The representative of the group is the conduit for specifications and details. Here, the planning purposes is quite vague and to me does not justify sharing sensitive commercial information. To me, ethical procurement respects business confidentiality. All right. I trust that these 6 wording warnings have given you some pause. None of these clauses are dramatic on their own, and that's kind of the point. Other than the venue disclaimer, to me, that would be just a deal breaker, but risk in event contracts don't usually shout, they whisper. They're buried in nuanced wording. Negotiating these wording warnings isn't about being difficult. It's about being deliberate. Because once you sign the language, the contract language, not the relationship, controls the outcome. So if you're interested in learning how to spot your own wording warnings in event contracts that you review, I'd encourage you to really carefully look at the Certified Event Contract Professional Credential Program, and you can find all of the details you need there at cecp.plannerprotect.ca. And before you leave, 3 things. I hope you will take a moment to register for next month's episode that I've called Contract Terms for Food and Beverage Events Need an Overhaul. And that's on Wednesday, February 18th. And that event will go up on my LinkedIn, on my Planner Protect LinkedIn tomorrow. And remember that all Event Contracts Exposed episodes are featured on Planner Protect's YouTube channel. And absolutely remember that a well-negotiated event contract isn't just a document, it's your power, it's your protection, and it's your peace of mind. So before we log off, Zach, I'm just going to go over here. Okay, I know that there's been some comments, and gosh, I love that. All right, Carol, what a crazy clause. Absolutely. Carol, is it an American venue contract or Canadian? You know, I should start making that distinction. I do a lot of American, but I also, I'm going to say probably half and half. So I really, I don't know. I would have to go back to my notes. Carol, she usually uses Canadian. I've seen them in US. Okay, that's good to know, Joan. Thank you for the clip. That would be a deal breaker for me, but interesting to see these types of clauses pop up. Absolutely. Joan, I love it when or is used when they mean and. Absolutely. You have to almost just read out loud all the time. Does it really make sense? Joan says, I have so many fun red line drafts from venues and vendors that you should write a book. I agree. That would be, we'd all learn from the guru, Joan Eisenstadt. All right. Yikes. Oh my goodness. Anyways, I will enjoy these comments, but please give me your feedback. Tell me that you loved these or didn't like them. I have about 30 of them that I've done over the last probably 5 or 6 years, and we'll continue to do them. They'll pop up on my LinkedIn feed. So thanks, everyone. I'm going to say goodbye for now. I've given you 2.5 minutes back in your half hour. Take care, folks.